Good afternoon, creator. Corey here. Today is Thursday the 25th, and right now it is 2:01 in the afternoon. And today we're going to go over section 4 of our lovely book You by Charles F. Haanel, and this section is entitled Electrical Vibrations. Before we get started, I just kind of want to share a little bit of something with you this morning. I stopped by my mom's work and I ended up buying her a stability ball. The reason I'm sharing this to go over the importance of a stability ball. My mom, she's not a huge fitness person, she's not a huge exercise person, but for her work, her occupation, she sits a lot. And she's a State Farm agent, and for those of you who are watching who are in any type of business in a similar relation to what State Farm agents do, they're in an office, they sit on a computer for the majority of their work day. For the most part, it's a lot of sitting. And today, I ended up getting her a stability ball, the 75 centimeter one. So she's going to use that in replacement for her chair. And the reason being is since she's not, exercising regularly, her body's not being put through any type of resistance, so it's not really going to, grow and develop, because pain is what brings growth, not pain in that way, but, any type of work that is involved in anything, you'll definitely get something out of it. But we got her a stability ball. The reason being is to help her stabilize her core area more, as well as stabilize her legs and her upper abdominals from her lower lumbar spine up through her thoracic. Because sitting down all day is no joke, and it definitely takes a huge toll on the body. I was reading in my NASM book when I went to get my training certificate. The majority of injuries are non-contact injuries, meaning they happen without really getting physical. Like a lot of people twist their ankles simply by getting off the chair and turning too quickly. It happens, and that's what the majority of ankle injuries came from. Simply because people are living a sedentary lifestyle. Since they're not moving, their bones get more brittle, their muscles will atrophy, their body will weaken over time, especially with age and everything, because my mom's close, she still has a few more years, but we're moving towards, mid-age, 50 years old, and, by that time, everyone wants to at least be of some type mobile by then, right? We stopped by, we got her a stability ball, so she's going to be using that in replacement for her chair, which is going to help her to strengthen her lower lumbar spine, to get rid of any back issues, and to stabilize more of the pelvic area as well as through the legs, because she's going to need to hold herself up the entire time while she's there at work, still working. She's still in a way getting a workout in. So that I wanted to share with you. So if you were a creator, if you are, if you have an occupation that requires you to be a little bit sedentary and doesn't involve a lot of movement, then a stability ball is definitely a good thing for you to, look into as a replacement for your chair. And I also invested in a 15-pound kettlebell for a client. We have one later today at 5. We still have several hours, and we're going to be training her here locally, so we don't need to worry about going out too far. She doesn't know I bought it yet, so it's definitely going to be a surprise for later. And it's my I would say sister-in-law. She's my brother's girlfriend, but she's not. They're like married, but they're not quite married. You know how that goes. But section 4, electrical vibrations. Now let's get started with our book. The only important theory which has ever been advanced to explain the properties of electricity is that of Faraday, which theory is that the region surrounding charged bodies is traversed by lines of force, the ends of which are rigidly attached to bodies charged with electricity of opposite polarities. Lodge regards the electron as a point charge of disembodied electricity, and nothing else, the vibrating corpuscle being a constituent of the atom, but itself possesses no material nucleus. He is responsible for the theory that all matter is electrical in nature, and there is now no physical scientists who doubt the truth of the constitution of matter in accordance with this theory. The earth itself is a huge magnet electrified by the sun, and the impulse, sensations, and varied states of consciousness of every living thing depend upon the vibrations which are constantly being received from the planets. The planets too are huge magnets, but of varying sizes and of different constitutions, each of which is likewise electrified by the sun. If a copper wire be wound spirally around a bar of soft iron, and electric current pass through the wire, the bar of iron will, for the time being, be converted into a magnet. If the bar with its spirally wound wire be balanced on a point or hung horizontally on a thread, so that it can swing around, it will point north and south like a permanent magnet or a magnetic needle. An empty spiral of wire, one with no bar passing through it, will behave in exactly the same way if an electric current is sent along the wire and is balanced so that it can swing. It will point north and south as long as the current passes, and the end that points south will be the one at which the current is traveling, around the spiral in the same direction as the hands of a watch. In magnetism, like poles repel each other, and unlike poles attract. The north pole of the magnet will repel the north pole of the magnetic needle, but will attract the south pole of the needle. Now okay. So here's this battery. Okay. This battery has its own electricity held within it. Okay. So let's put this in perspective. Okay. Let's say that this battery is the Earth. Okay, and this laugh rock is the sun. You know, as the sun is releasing its energies and the earth is moving around the sun while at the same time spinning on its axis, it's picking up on all the energy that's being emanated from the sun and twisting it into more motion, which is how we manifest heat, light, sound, and everything on planet Earth. And Earth, as well as all the other planets, okay, let's say this could be, Jupiter, here's the sun. Jupiter, just like Earth, is also traveling through our solar system, picking up on all the energies that's being received by the sun. While Jupiter is also rotating on its axis, throwing all those vibrations into its own activity upon Jupiter. Okay, and what he's saying here, how these magnetic poles work together. Okay, let's say both of these positive parts of this battery, okay, both of these are north sides. Okay, this is the side where energy is being emanated out from. Okay, so like the invisible lines which Faraday had pinpointed that these magnetic fields have. Okay, this magnetic field will be pushing out of the north side of this battery, or let's say if this battery was a magnet, okay, be pushing out of this magnet, okay, from the north side, and then the current will come back into the magnet through the south side. That is why as the north side pushes out and the south side brings in, that is why the two opposite parts attract, as to where if we try to put both the north sides together where both of the energy is being released, they're not going to attract. That is why they're going to be repelled, because it's kind of like two forces pushing up against each other, instead of one force giving off the current and the other side of the force taking in that current. Okay. In magnetism, like poles repel each other, and unlike poles attract. The north pole of a magnet will repel the north pole of a magnetic needle, but it will attract the south pole of the needle. Because the needle is a permanent magnet, the obvious inference from the fact of its pointing north and south is that the magnetism at the north pole of the earth must be similar in its nature and in the direction of its electric currents to that at the south pointing end of the needle or of a bar of a magnet. Magnetic attraction implies opposites. Therefore, the magnetism at the north pole of the Earth must be opposite in nature to that of the north pointing end of the magnet. In fact, the Earth behaves as a great bar magnet were thrust, as if a great bar magnet were thrust through its axis, the south pole of the magnet being at the north pole of the Earth. Wow. The Earth behaves as if a great bar magnet were thrust through its axis, the south pole of the magnet being at the north pole of the Earth. It follows from this that the electric currents are traveling spirally around the Earth from pole to pole. If we could look down upon the north pole of the Earth and could see that these currents, they would appear to move in the same direction as the hands of a watch. That is to say, they would behave just as do the sun, moon, and planets, rise in the east, pass across the meridian, and set in the west. All electrical energy has its source in the sun, which is the center of all life, force, and energy, and represents the positive and primal fount of all existence. In the sun are contained all the colors of the solar spectrum. Every form of existence manifesting in the solar system is bathed in these rays, from which is drawn the life that is at the center of its existence. The moon represents the negative influence, her light being that which is borrowed from the sun, she having no light of her own except that which she collects as a reflector. We may think of the sun as a symbol of spirit, and the moon of matter, the two acting in unison as spirit-matter, or life and form. The planets nearest the sun are the most active in motion, making their revolutions around the sun in the shortest length of time. They travel through space at the greatest rate of speed. As we recede from the sun towards the orbit of Neptune, this activity of the planets becomes gradually less. Thus, Mercury travels through space at a rate of 29.3 miles per second. Excuse me, sorry. I know, like in every one of my videos, huh? And accomplishes a revolution around the sun in about 87 days, while Neptune, the farthest removed from the planets, has a velocity of about 3½ miles a second, and requires about 165 years to make a revolution around the sun. Now remember how I believe it was the first section, how we were going over that, okay? The reason being is simply because Mercury is a lot closer to the sun, okay? The sun has a lot more influence upon Mercury because of how close it is, and that influence is what is causing Mercury to, move quicker around the sun, spin faster on its axis, as to where Neptune, which is the farthest, from the sun, at least a lot farther away from the sun than Mercury is. Okay, it will take Neptune 165 years to make one revolution, as compared to Mercury, it accomplishes it in 87 days. Now that's a big difference. Our Earth travels at a rate of 19 miles a second, or 75 times faster than a cannonball. Mercury is about 3,000 miles in diameter, or approximately 3/8 the diameter of the Earth. Its mean distance from the Sun is 35,393,000 miles. Its orbit is the most elliptical of all the planets, sometimes approaching within 28,153,000 miles of the Sun, and at other times removed 42,669,000 miles. And what he means when he says is the most elliptical, okay, its orbit, okay, because we all learned that the planets don't revolve around in complete circles. They revolve around the sun in elliptical fashion. Okay, like this time, let's have our dream rock as the sun. Okay, like Earth could be way out here, and when it comes to make its rotation on this side, it could be even this much closer. That's what an elliptical is. It's has a wider, like just a wider circle, on one side as compared to the other. And Mercury having the highest elliptical, I would say because it is closest to the sun, okay, it has a lot of how would you say, the influence from the sun, okay, as it moves closest to it, and it gains all that speed and it gains all that momentum, and as it moves around the sun, it's kind of like a slingshot towards the other side, you know, like it comes this close, and by the time it reaches this point, it gains all that speed and momentum. By the time it comes back on this side, you know, it already has all of that momentum gained, you know, and from then it pushes out even farther away from the sun. It makes a lot of sense. It is by nature convertible, being affected by the planet with which it is in conjunction. When apart from any other influence, Mercury is a changeable, cold, dry, mercurial, planet. Those who are born under its influence are extremely sensitive to the rise and fall in atmospheric temperature or pressure. The body is easily affected by environment and is therefore liable to feelings of comfort and discomfort according to circumstances. Physically, Mercury governs the brain, nerve, bowels, arms and hands, mouth, tongue, and lungs. The temperament is excitable, very quick and active, rather changeable, and sometimes highly nervous. Mercury has been termed, quote, the messenger of the gods, end quote, and he seems to have the special office of being the messenger of every other planet to the sun. He is the great mental ruler, for without Mercury's influence we should be devoid of memory and probably speech, and also all other powers of expression. Mercury is therefore the great actor in life's drama. The orbit of Venus, like that of Mercury, lies within the orbit of the Earth. Okay, hold on, I want to add something. If we didn't have Mercury's influence, he is saying that we would probably be devoid of memory and probably of speech, and also all other powers of expression. I want to go over a little bit more about speech and expression and the fifth chakra, you know, the fifth energy center of your body, which emanates specific energies, you know, and you have your fifth chakra is your throat chakra, also known as Visuddha, and Visuddha is responsible for communicating, you know, like saying things, you know, and expressing things to other beings, you know. It doesn't have to be a human being, it could be a dog, you know. Okay, the orbit of Venus, like that of Mercury, lies within the orbit of the Earth, and, like Mercury, she is sometimes an evening and sometimes a morning star. Her orbit is larger than that of Mercury, but it never recedes more than 48 degrees from the Sun. Venus accomplishes one sidereal revolution in about 225 days. The diameter of Venus is 7,510 miles. Its distance from the Sun is 66,586,000 miles. Venus is the most beautiful planet in the solar system. Her influence is for pleasure, cheerfulness, and affection. Venus is decidedly a feminine planet, presiding over all affairs which concern females, and the clinging, preserving, nourishing, and sustaining element. Therefore, she has the greatest influence in feminine affairs. She brings out all of the artistic, idealistic, and musical faculties. She presides over all higher emotions and refined desires, as well as over the sensuous feelings. Sentiment and pleasurable desires govern the Venus nature, and wherever mirth, pleasure, and joy are found, the vibrations from Venus will be in control. Whilst the planet Venus has a decided influence of her own, she is also affected by the aspects from other planets, the feelings and emotions being depressed or expanded according to the nature of the planet with which she is in aspect. The typical Venus woman is well developed in every way, of medium stature and beautiful skin. The complexion is clear and attractive, the eyes very bright and sparkling, inclined to be dark blue or hazel, and full of feeling. The color of the eyes and hair is affected by the planets aspecting Venus. The face is smiling and pleasant, the voice soft and sweet. The pure Venus type of woman is irresistible in charm, and she seems destined to draw out all the love and affection of those around her. Physically, Venus confers beauty of form, clearness and skin, fine hair, and firm flesh, which is usually healthy. Mentally, she confers an appreciation of the fine arts, but gives very little inclination for study or intellectual pursuits, those born under her influence being guided more by their feelings than by thought or reason. The moral qualities are sometimes rather latent, the Venus temperament preferring to obtain its desires quickly and easily by the most convenient methods and strict morality, or sometimes even reason is often disregarded where these desires are in question. The Venus disposition is cheerful, merry, generous, light-hearted, and sometimes very witty. Males born under Venus are affable, courteous, kind, and sympathetic, though sometimes rather effeminate. Venus governs the feeling and emotions only, and these feelings and emotions will be affected by the planets aspecting or influencing Venus at the time of birth. Okay. I know this is a lot of information, and it's definitely a lot to learn about, especially when it's involved with things like this, and how we're all affected by, just the planets of our solar system. It's a lot of pondering, you could say, to be doing over this type of information. And right now I'm going to go ahead and stop it right here. Next we're going to talk about Mars, and then continue on from there. We still have a good while to go, so that being said, I will see you in